they said it was going through that community foundation. The community foundation is actually meeting in the caucus room. They're using that at 8 o'clock. So I swear that's what they originally told me. And then they said it was coming here. Remember, the Valley one came, and so we needed a little court. So I said to them, I said, you know, we haven't gotten it, so you should probably do a little follow-up and see where it is. And then they're waiting on one from TD, but that's not coming here. That was going to Hello. So nobody has it. So I think it was for 1,000 maybe, but even that it wasn't. For somebody was doing 750, someone else was doing 1,000. Whatever it is, I'm sure we'll square with them. They committed to that, so I'm sure they'll save money. If not, we're going to close all our accounts. Give me a favor tonight.
Dylan could explain it. I don't know.
Don, you good? I'd like to call this meeting to order. Ridgewood Village Council, public workshop. Today's October 23rd, 2019. The time is 7:30 p.m. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by a posting on the bulletin board in Village Hall, by mail to the Ridgewood News, the Record, and by submission to all persons entitled to same, as provided by law, but scheduled, including the date and time of this meeting. Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Knudsen?
Here.
Councilman Seaton?
Here.
Councilman Voigt?
Here.
Councilwoman Walsh is not present. Mayor Hache?
Here. Please stand for the flag salute. Please join us in a moment of silence in honor of the brave men and women serving our nation's armed forces and its first responders. Thank you. We'll open up with public comments, not to exceed 3 minutes per person. Come on up. Should be a green light at the bottom at the stem.
You got to push the button.
Yep.
Okay, now it should be on. Yeah. Okay, Andrew Lowry, 441 Hawthorne Place in Ridgewood. I'm speaking on behalf of the Shade Tree Commission, and I have 3 little points to make, which are related but somewhat separate. I'm warning you that we are planning to make a series of comments and presentations over the next couple months to try to increase the priority that trees and tree canopy has in Ridgewood. This will be really informational, and we look forward to brief meetings and discussions about the subject. Second thing is that tonight I know they're going to be talking about village residents planting trees in the village, and we support that 100%, but we should recognize that that is not a solution to the issue. It's a part, it's a support, it's an embellishment, but it's not it can't be the primary position that we take. Third is that I know there's a presentation coming about age-friendly Ridgewood, and I'm very pleased that we've made improvements in the sidewalks, and there are a lot of other things going on. But I would say that in 10 years, there are not going to be many people 55 or older or even younger who are going to want to walk down Ridgewood Avenue in July and August at midday. We have to think about the future. Global warming is real, and the downtown is going to be exceptionally hot. It's already much hotter than the rest of the village. Finally, I've just spoken with one of the council members about this, and Mike, who works on the council, on the Shade Committee, is aware of it. But we've been reaching out to the developers to try to make sure that they use the best practices in developing their sidewalk plans. And I have emailed, called, sent articles, done everything that I know how to do to get their attention, and I've gotten zero response. Okay, so Chris told me, lots of luck, and I understand that. They have an approved plan, but the problem is the sidewalks are going to get poured pretty soon. So anything that you can do as a council to, insert a little pressure, I think for a small amount of money, you will get a huge payoff long term in what the street looks like and what basically what their buildings are going to look like. So that's all I've got to say.
Thank you.
I'd just like to note for the record that Councilwoman Walsh is present.
Hello, everyone. Nancy Brennan Hill, and I came to say a few more words about trees. And I agree with everything that the gentleman ahead of me said, but I just want to tell you how much these trees mean to me. I go to my back window at night and I look out, and the sky's blue and purple and yellow with the trees against the horizon. It's gorgeous. In the morning, I sit on the porch and drink tea and look at the street. More gorgeous. I grab my green cart with the wheels on it and walk uptown, go to Whole Foods, walk around. It's beautiful. On the way up there, there are big trees with big knots in them. They're sycamore. They're just beautiful. And we've got to really do something to sustain this beauty in Ridgewood. And the only thing I can think of is that we need a dedicated tree person. We need somebody who loves Ridgewood, who loves the trees, who has a passion for keeping all of this going. There are lovely volunteers. They want to do things, but they need somebody to organize it, to keep it going. So we need a chunk of money, because you can keep talking and keep meeting and keep doing everything. And if there's no money behind it and no person in charge, it just comes to nothing. So I'm asking you to put not just some money to say that you did it, but really put something in there and get the right person so that we can keep this all going. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am? Excuse me, would you make sure that you give your name and address, please? Thank you.
Me?
Everyone.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John Whitmack, 480 Upper Boulevard. The reason I'm here is adjacent to my property is a paper street. I think everybody knows what a paper street is. I'm interested in purchasing the paper street from the town. I'm here upon the advice of Matt Rogers to formally make that inquiry and to see if we can get that going. I know it's happened in the past. My neighbor has purchased his section of it, albeit it was a long time ago. But it's an unused piece of property right now that the town is maintaining, and I would like to buy it. So that is my formal announcement. Right. I don't know if there's anything else I need to do other than just make that announcement and then have it go from there.
Yep.
I have copies of my survey. Is anybody interested?
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Saurabh Dani, 390 Bedford Road, Ridgewood. I'm here for two comments. One is related to the trees, what Nancy just mentioned and the previous gentleman mentioned. So if you guys do decide to go with any volunteer effort, I'm willing to volunteer, and I know several other residents who are willing to volunteer. So you guys guide us, and we'll do the labor. The second point is on the library. On the library, I met and I interacted with several trustees in last 2-3 weeks or a couple of months, and those interactions were really good. And I think some of the trustees I really developed some respect, and they are good listeners and problem solvers. And at the same time, since today both all the council members are here and the trustees are here, I want to ask that we all know there are a couple of trustees, or at least one, I can't take the name, but who has not been a good neighbor or who has not performed as a good trustee. So I think the trustees and the council should ask for resignations. So you can appoint people, but I think when the time comes, you should be able to ask for resignations. If you are not doing that, the trustee should ask, or the person should himself resign. And on the second part of that, there are some residents who are not trustees of the library, but who have done a lot of research, who have gone through all the 250 pages of survey results, which library did not, and have invested a lot of time in the design review. So maybe there should be some way to get their input. So residents who are interested, their input should be considered during this design and build process, and trustees who are not behaving as trustees should be requested to resign. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Steve Kim, 291 Highland. The Ridgewood Library's proposed $7.6 million renovation doesn't help the library expand its services by much. The reimagined Ridgewood Library will have less usable space, floor space, because of the enlarged staircase. The teen center will be a fraction of the staff space situated right next to it. The kids' area will not expand. The book collection will merely be the same. And it should be about the books, right? ESL will not expand from the current 125 students because space isn't what's constraining that program. So, what is the benefit of spending $7.6 million and living through 18 months of disruption and agony? Yes, we should update and perhaps reconfigure the library, but let's not gut it just for the sake of cutting it. Let's not put a hole through the floor for light and thereby messing up flow of a good building. We should look for a solution that derives the most user value rather than what consumes the most dollar value. With regards to the library's matching grant, I ask everyone to read the Act regulation carefully because it sure doesn't sound like we would be first in line for that money. And it's highly contested. When we apply, we should be straightforward about facts. Sure, I like getting grant money as much as the next person, but we should do it the right way. So here is an excerpt from the regulator. There was a survey. In order to get a glimpse of the immediate need, on May 1st, 2019, the State Library distributed a quick turnaround survey which closed May 17th. The survey identified over 170 projects totaling over $370 million. We recognize that ultimately the number will be significantly higher, but this at least provides some estimate of upcoming workload. Just as a reminder, there's $125 million available. So I think we should put that into consideration. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Judith Driver at 133 Godwin Avenue. I originally came here to support trees, shade trees in the village, but I think I concur with everything that has been said beforehand, so I'm going to change mine. I would like to request that the sign, there's an electronic board which has Village of Ridgewood business at the train station, and it's a very, it bears one message, and it stays on for about 30 seconds and then disappears. I'd like to request that at least once a minute that they put the time of day on that. I find it very useful to have an idea what time it is. And there's only 2 clocks that I know that ever correct in Ridgewood. And my phone is always in my bag or somewhere that I can't see. So I would think that's a programming thing that could be done very easily and could be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, the Deputy Mayor, and all the council people. Good evening. Good to see everyone. I just wanted to come by.
Name and address.
Reverend Lemuel Brown, 399 South Broad Street. Okay. I just wanted to come by this evening and just make more of a statement. Approximately a week and a half ago, I had the very esteemed honor to go down to Falls Church, Virginia, to visit the Kensington Corporation, their Senior Assisted Living Program. I was contacted by them, and I went down to see the facility. Falls Church is a town very similar to that of Ridgewood. While down there, I had the opportunity to meet the principals and the staff, and what a fine facility the Kensington Corporation Senior Assisted Living Program is. We had lunch, took me through the place. It was very well put together. We also took a ride through the town and realized that the town was very similar to that of Ridgewood. $1 million homes. The mayor reminded me of Mayor Hache. Every time I ride down Ridgewood Avenue, I can see Mayor Hache walking down the street. And we ran into the mayor walking down the street there in Falls Church. And I also had the opportunity to meet one of the councilmen there as well regarding the Kensington Corporation. And so I was very much impressed on the Senior Assisted Living Program, not only how it's set up, it's arranged, the parking. It was just a phenomenal place. And I took one step further. This past, just 2 days ago, I went to another facility of theirs on my own in Westchester County, because that's where I'm really originally from, in New York. And I went to their facility in White Plains and had an opportunity to tour it there as well put together. My reasoning for coming out tonight was to share that with you. And I really believe that the Kensington Corporation, with the desires that they have here in Ridgewood, would be an asset. I'm never one to speak on something that I don't really believe in, or I believe in something that I will never stand for something I don't believe in. But after looking at it and visiting it and seeing it, I was very much impressed and very excited, and also speaking with the councilmen down in that area. So tonight I just wanted to come by and share with the council. I understand they were here and they presented, but I only wanted to give you my end of it, because I believe that the Kensington Corporation will provide so much.
Thank you.
And my 3 minutes?
Yeah, so
okay.
we have 5 more minutes at the end of the meeting if you want to wait.
Okay.
And come back again.
All right. I'm sorry. That's the reverend in me.
Amen. Nobody else? So we'll close public comments. Just for the gentleman, Mr. Whitmack, so you're already in communications with Matt Rogers. Thank you for sharing this, and thank you for having your case put into the record. And we'll follow up with Matt on what are the next steps, and we'll be in contact with you regarding that. Okay? Thank you. And with that, we will go to manager's report.
Okay. I want to remind everyone Election Day is Tuesday, November 5th. The polls will be open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. There's contests for General Assembly and freeholders. The upcoming Village Council meetings for the rest of this year are November 6th for a work session, November 13th is a public meeting, December 4th is a work session, and then December 11th is our last public meeting of the year. The Water Department hydrant flushing began October 20th, and those customers who signed up for Swift Reach Reverse 911 received an advance call regarding this maintenance project. Hydrant flushing is an essential part of the water system maintenance program that helps Ridgewood Water provide quality water service. In order to cleanse the system, we have to systemically open the fire hydrants to increase water flows. This allows us to flush any minerals and deposits from the pipes that may have accumulated. While flushing the system, we will not interrupt water service to residents. When the crews are working in your area, you may notice a temporary drop in water pressure or discolored water. This is normal. If this happens, simply let your water run until it is clear. There are no health concerns associated with the minerals that get stirred up, but residents are urged to avoid doing laundry while crews are working. If you have any questions about routes, maps, or schedules, you can contact Neil Gallone in our water department. The Chamber of Commerce is sponsoring Halloween in the park with their annual Haunted Harvest event, Saturday, October 26th, with a rain date of October 27th, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. in Memorial Park at Van Ness Square. Gather in the park to pick up a map of participating businesses. There will be a hay maze, pumpkin patch, a Halloween parade for children at 12 noon, and a pet parade at 1 p.m. Come have fun and meet the Good Witch. Ridgewood Recreation, there will be children's programs scheduled for the Teachers Convention recess on November 7th. There will be a live animal show and Lego Minecraft engineering for grades K through 2 and 3 to 5. Additional information can be found from our Recreation Department. The Bergen County Utilities Authority sponsors free recycling events throughout the year. The last household hazardous waste collection will take place on Saturday, November 16th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Bergen County Utilities Authority, which is the foot of Empire Boulevard in Moonachie. Items that will be collected are aerosol cans, fluorescent light bulbs, paints and varnishes, propane gas cylinders. This event is rain or shine, and you do need proof of Bergen County residency. Finally, our farmers market, I just want to remind everyone, will remain open through November 24th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Ridgewood train station. This is every Sunday up till the 24th. Come meet the farmers, and there are also pumpkins, as well as homemade jams, Bella Mozzarella, Made Fresh, Pickalicious, and Bounty Bakers. Thanks.
All right, thank you. We'll go to council reports. We'll switch it up today. We'll start the other way. We'll start with Councilman Voigt.
Thank you, Mayor. So the Citizens Safety Advisory Committee met on October 17th. There were discussions about the Franklin Avenue corridor and the work that the village and Bergen County are doing related to that. There are design drawings in the works. They met the week of October 7th. The county will do plans for each intersection along that corridor, which includes Maple and East Ridgewood intersection, Maple and Franklin, Franklin and Oak, and Franklin and Broad. The county, from my understanding, is committed to paying for the basics of the intersections, poles and lights and concrete, and if we want to make it more decorative, it will cost the village additionally. The idea as well is to create bump outs to make the crosswalk shorter at each of the intersections. There may be some land taking, especially at the Maple-Franklin intersection, so that may create some issues. And the goal is to continue to communicate with Bergen County, and it's the village's intention to continue to engage with Bergen County to ensure we maintain our spot on the hierarchy of priorities. So that will be an active, ongoing activity. CBDAC mentioned that they're looking at potential measures to upgrade the lighting at busy intersections. That was mentioned at the meeting. The flashing speed sign, which is to be placed on North Walnut, arrived yesterday. The plan is to install that by the end of next week. It will be mid-street between Linwood and Franklin. The sidewalk extension plan on West Glen is to be reinitiated next spring, and it'll occur from Hillcrest to Heights. Just the Sierra Club and the League of Women Voters met last week. There was several of us that were there. A gentleman named Jeff Tittle, who is with the Sierra Club, talked about global warming, which is the biggest issue. And it's going to, in the next 15 to 20 years, there are concerns about the meadowlands actually flooding. We asked him what we could do as it relates to ensuring that, we do our job in Bergen County. His number one priority, said, is plant as many trees as possible. So, anyways, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilman Walsh?
Thank you, Mayor. Heather mentioned the Halloween in the Park for Chamber of Commerce, and then obviously you see all of the library members ready to do their presentation, so I will let them, when they come up, give an update on the library. That's all I have.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Great, thank you. Planning Board met October 15th, I believe it was, for a number of reviews of ordinances that the Village Council had sent back to the Planning Board, which was the signed descending letters, which we've all gone through again and again, the bright and brilliant colors, which is currently in the code and we've determined is some vague language. We also worked on the garage issue, the driveway, and that's going to be kicked back as it was written, and I think that the planner, Mary Ann Bucci-Carter, did state that it achieves the goals and objectives we're looking to achieve based on that lot coverage and improvement coverage. We also discussed the request, I think, by Steel Wheel for those outdoor vestibules. And Mary Ann Bucci-Carter is going to prepare a draft ordinance for us to review. I thought it would have been ready for today, but probably our next work session. So we'll try to get that rolling as quickly as possible. And then we heard a preliminary and final major subdivision application for 232-250 North Maple Avenue, which is drawn a lot of interest, garnered a tremendous amount of interest from residents. The meeting was well attended, and that application testimony was from the engineer, but that was going to be carried to January 7th, 2020. And so we're in 2020. January 7th, 2020, mark your calendars. That application has been carried. And I think that's it.
Thank you. Councilman Seaton.
Thank you, Mayor. Seeing Mr. Donnie in the crowd, I'd just like to reminded me that we were invited to the Diwali Festival over the weekend, which was really exciting. It was great fun, great food, a lot of great people. The mayor and deputy mayor were there. The mayor was dressed much better than I was, or more appropriately than I was, and it was, we had a lot of fun. So thank you to the Ridgewood Indian community and everyone for sponsoring that and putting the event together. On October 15th, it was a pretty busy night here in Village Hall, at least for myself. The Green Ridgewood met, the Green Team met, and the Shade Tree Commission met all at the same time, so I was kind of downstairs and running upstairs. But Green Ridgewood, from what I caught at the meeting, was we are revamping the Green Business Recognition Program. Volunteers have been going out to the community to try and get more food, more restaurants and more retail people involved. We're also kind of double dipping because we're exploring the possibility of recycling food waste. So to get into the restaurant owners and kind of talk to them about this program and then ask them what they do with their food waste is it's interesting. It's a good way to collect some information so that we could try and roll this program out in the future. Right now the infrastructure isn't really there in Bergen County. But if we stay on top of it and ahead of things, then once the infrastructure is in place or begins to get put in place, perhaps it's a program that could help us on, recycling food and reducing our tipping fees for our garbage and just generally helping the environment. The plastic bag ban, the education is being rolled out and things are finalized, so we'll start seeing people around handing out reusable bags and bookmarks. We didn't want to do a lot of literature because, again, to save trees and use less paper and create less waste. So stay tuned. The Shade Tree Commission, our chair, Andrew Lowry, was here. He spoke about a lot of things that were going on there. So, one thing that we thought with the developments downtown is, again, the sidewalks aren't even in place yet. So if they're going to plant trees, which it looked like they were going to do on their plans, then they should do it the right way, and it'll help the village, it'll help the downtown, and even help their projects because the trees will survive. They'll shade the fronts of their properties, and it'll just make it look nicer. One of the other things that came up was we are in the third year, I believe, of our 5-year plan, and it's critically important to get the tree survey accomplished for a number of reasons, because this would be a baseline for us to find out exactly how many trees we do have on the streets in the village of Ridgewood. So right now we're guessing here 15,000, 12,000, but there's really no formal count that's been done. And again, this will tell you the condition of the tree, the species, where it's located, and it will also help us to apply for larger grants from the State Shade Tree Federation, which could be close to $300,000. So having this in place would be key to moving forward and getting a lot of trees planted in the village of Ridgewood. It seems to be a hot topic these days. A lot of people are talking about it. And then the nursery committee, which Ms. Driver and Brennan Hill are a part of, we've discussed several ideas. Resident planting came out of that, and we're going to talk about that a little bit down in the agenda. So we'll hold off on that. And I think that was it. If I missed anything, I'll come back. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have to report on a few grand openings we had on the 17th of October. We had grand opening of Flora's Cottage on 7 North Broad Street. The deputy mayor was there. It's downstairs. It's a wonderful space. It's a space on one side is facials, and on the other side there are different, over 17 organic brands of different skincare products. It was a really, really beautiful space. I was very excited for her.
It is beautiful. Just go visit because it's beautiful. The space is gorgeous.
And the owner, Eva, is absolutely lovely, so please stop by and say hello. We also had a grand opening on Monday, 38 Oak Street, Northeast Laser Vein Institute on 38 Oak Street, the site of the old post office next to Park West Tavern. Deputy Mayor and Councilman Voigt were there as well. Very excited to have them. Beautiful facility. They also do some cosmetic work as well, including blemish removal, fat reduction, and which I'm interested in. That's a good one.
But you don't lose weight.
But you don't lose weight. It's sculpting. It's sculpting. But again, very excited to have them. I'll touch briefly on the Diwali celebration. Again, it was a great, wonderful celebration. The outfit that Councilman Seaton was referring to was a kurta, I believe, which I borrowed, and I have to tell you, it was the most comfortable outfit I've ever worn in my life. It was unbelievable. I think I might have to rethink my wardrobe choices. And last but not least, we had last Friday the Blue Star Dinner in the community center and Lady Mount Carmel. And Councilman Walsh was there. It was a really wonderful event. Our very own Commander Paoli with Post 53 of the American Legion, again, held a wonderful ceremony in honor of those families who have sons and daughters serving in our nation's armed forces. And they were happy to report that we have 4 new families that joined the group this year. And it was wonderful. Heard some really good and heartfelt commentary from the families, and they share their experiences in being military families. And there was one in particular, was an 11-year-old girl whose dad has been deployed, and she was just talking about how much she misses them and how much the family supports what he does and how proud they are of him. So it was a really wonderful event, and I suggest that if you haven't attended one in the past, that you get to do so. That's all I have.
Okay, our first presentation this evening is from Age Friendly Ridgewood, a survey that they did of older residents. So I'll invite Beth Abbott, Sheila Brogan, and Sue Ulrich to come up.
Hi, I'm Beth Abbott, 174 Union Street. Do you want to give your...
Sheila Brogan, 302 Kensington Drive.
So we appreciate this chance to talk to you tonight. Tonight we'll present results, some results from our recent survey of Ridgewood residents 55 and older. And since the 55 and older group is a quarter of our population, we think this is really useful information for you and for us. Just to refresh your memory, we started Age Friendly Ridgewood back in 2015 with another survey of the older population. We designed our questions around AARP's 8 livable community domains. So we decided to do a follow-up survey this year. In both cases, we used SurveyMonkey to do the survey online and also had printed copies that we distributed around town. Also, in both cases, we hired a neutral third-party research firm to clean the data and analyze the results. This time, they also helped us with the questions to make sure they were clear and valuable. The first survey had more questions, and we kept it open longer. This time, we had advice from the research firm that 360 would be a credible number of responses. We had 384. We tried hard to publicize the survey with all the usual suspects and also get to people that we have not reached before. So why did we conduct another survey? We wanted to take a deeper dive into some of the areas, such as the transportation services. We asked some different questions. For instance, we asked about rideshare service use. We wanted to ask about pedestrian safety, since there's been improvements, and see what people feel about that. We asked some of the questions in more detailed ways. For instance, in housing, we asked specifically what type of housing would make it easier for folks to stay in Ridgewood as they get older. We asked some questions in different ways. For instance, in the first survey, we asked if people needed help with maintenance in their homes, and this time we asked specifically about snow and leaves and other things. We asked more detail about how people get and want to get information, and also for specific questions about speaker events. Finally, we asked how Age Friendly Ridgewood is doing. Knowing this will help us plan our future events and outreach. And to be brutally honest, our grant funder wants to know that too. We also asked for suggestions on what else we can do for this community. So Sheila's going to go further into the subject areas, but I want to mention that the document that the research firm created for us that you have, and also another document with all the questions and all the statistics are already posted on our Age Friendly website under the surveys tab on the home page. And the old surveys there, as well as this data. This is some of the demographics of who responded to this survey. And these are pretty similar to who responded to our original survey. So now I'd like to turn it over to Sheila.
Good evening. Thanks for letting us present tonight. So just to give you some information about some of the survey, initially, in our initial survey, we asked questions about housing. And the response really from the over 700 people that answered our question were they wanted us, or not us, but the village to look at developing housing options for seniors. One, that are affordable, but even more than affordable, that they are smaller in scale and different options. So we wanted to take that a little further. So on the next slide, you already did it. On our follow-up survey, we asked respondents, what would make it easier to stay in Ridgewood? And I'm not downsizing the importance of affordable housing and, of course, the concerns about high property taxes. But residents said it would be easier, and you can see a couple of the options, condos, townhouses, low-income subsidized housing, and then rental. We asked, and just on the housing, we also hear from our residents there is a desire to stay in Ridgewood and to stay in your own home. So to address some of that, I put on the dais today. We're having a program next Tuesday at the library on aging in place, and you can see the speakers that we're having to explore what kinds of services are out there in the county and locally to help people stay in their homes comfortably. So that is one response. And another response, we're very happy that the county has put together, and you'll see this also in your packet, a guide to home improvement services. And I know we gave one to Heather at a meeting. So we are trying to address making sure that information and resources are available for older adults. As Beth mentioned, we did ask about leaf raking and snow shoveling, which is daunting for some in our community. And for that, we've been looking at a subscription service called Umbrella, who say for a pretty lower cost that they may be able to do that. There'll be some information on that program at our housing forum next Tuesday as well. The next is we talked about transportation. Initially, our residents talked to us about transportation in our initial survey to offer services later and point-to-point service, and on pedestrian safety to improve some safety, street lighting, and sidewalk repairs. On our follow-up survey, 45%, is that it? Oh, did I miss one? Excuse me. On our follow-up survey on transportation, only 6% of the respondents are using our senior bus. And so we view this as a challenge for us to make sure that our older adults are aware of this service and this option. We're so pleased that the village purchased a new bus because the old bus was breaking down, so thank you so much for that. So in order to create awareness, we've had some specialty bus rides. I know some of you are very much aware of that. Earlier this month, Nancy Bigos was our partner in that, and we had the bus take a look at our park systems and visit some of our parks with older adults who don't normally ride the bus, so that was great. We've created a brochure with Ridgewood's options, both the bus and the coupon program, giving our residents a number of options for using, and that's been very well received. And we are exploring the idea of doing a video next spring on the bus and the coupon service, again to raise awareness of this opportunity for people who are saying, well, maybe I'm still driving, but I really don't like to drive to the doctor's office, or I really don't like parking in a busy parking lot, and it would be easier to do that. So 34% of our respondents had never used a ride share, and that was interesting, and we sort of delved into why, and it's don't know how it works, safety, no smartphone, that kind of thing was impediments to using that. On pedestrian safety, 45% of our respondents thought that the Central Business District was still unsafe or very unsafe for pedestrians, and they had a number of suggestions, and we've listed them there. Worth noting is that many respondents identified Franklin Avenue and Ridgewood Avenue as particularly unsafe for pedestrians, and so we are really grateful of you pushing ahead with the county and having that partnership to improve Franklin Avenue. So thank you so much for that. That's great. On communications, really, where do people get their information? Look at you. You're top of the guide there, Village e-notices. And for that, you might look at, are there other opportunities or more frequent opportunities to get that information out? I'd also like to say the public library is another area when they do their e-notices out to communicate. And we've got some work to do because we're at the bottom of the list. So we're still building our email list. Communication, so how would you like to receive information was our next question. And you'll see that for age-friendly, they would like to receive it from some of our sources. But again, Village's e-notices and public library are the two ones that follow there. So that is really significant, as the newspaper is not so robust in the information offered. This is a great opportunity for us to look at that. And then we asked about our speaker series. We've had some luck, and we are very grateful to the Ridgewood Library because they've been a fabulous partner for us, as has the community center, in allowing speakers in on aging issues. So you can see the list of things that people are interested in, and look at 35% said housing options. So we're beginning to try to get at that with this first series, and we'll be doing more work on that. So our follow-up survey, the perceived impact of age-friendly Ridgewood, yes, 73% of the respondents said they're familiar with age-friendly. That was gratifying. 70% feel there's been a difference, but it's not us, it's all of our partners who are really helping to make that happen. And 45% feel that concerns about community supports and services have been addressed. So that's positive, I think, on that. Going forward, our respondents told us that, we need further work. We know that on pedestrian safety. You're started that work. We'll continue. Housing, transportation. And interestingly enough, because a lot of our respondents were, in their early 70s, they said, how about you have a range of activities and events to engage residents 55 to 70? And I know that some 55-year-olds don't like to be thought of as older adults, but hey, join the crowd so we can do more activities for that. So I think that's it.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. And I'll open up to questions from the council. Councilman Boyd.
Thanks for the presentation. It's very good. So a couple questions for you. The issue of pedestrian safety. Could you do me a big favor? Could you send your information to Bergen County and let them know how important it is? The freeholders and possibly the county executive. Just continue to reinforce the concerns we have on Franklin Ave, which is an issue, as you know.
Sure.
That would be great.
Mm-hmm. We'll be glad to. We know that the ball's really in the village's court to do some of the work and to work with the county and keep it in the forefront, but we can certainly send in that information.
Good,
yeah.
And we, the leaders, the age-friendly 5-town coordinators, just met with Michelle DeLorgy and Julian Niels, who work for Mr. Tedesco, and we brought that up, and they seemed already aware. So
good, yeah.
I think it's great Ridgewood's gotten on the radar with that.
Never hurts to reinforce.
Right.
So the other thing on technology, I found that interesting, is you had 27% that needed help with technology. Does that mean that there are 73% who actually are comfortable with it, or?
I think that was on the speaking events, right? They're interested in a speaker event that would be
okay.
about technology.
Yeah, but so you can't make the inference that 73% are comfortable with it.
Only the respondents.
Okay. All right.
But I think the bulk of our surveys were online.
They were. Okay,
Yeah.
so there's a comfort level then with people who are age friendly that
Right.
Yeah.
And
that's good to hear.
and again, kudos to the library because they have their technology lab and they do work. And I know in my own practice, more and more I'm seeing people who are more comfortable with technology and are using smartphones and iPads and things like that.
Yeah, and it's also nice to see all the different programs that are at the library. I mean, it really has become a community center as opposed to a library. So that's nice to see.
And the community center with the grant from Columbia Bank, getting the 8 computers, and so that's great, and that will give another opportunity for older adults to get familiar with all the kinds of different technology. So, wow, really good.
Yeah, this sounds like a great program too.
Yes,
Tuesday. Yeah.
please come.
Yeah, I will.
We need an audience.
Yeah,
Spread
right.
the word.
And by the way, we're bringing Columbia Bank to be recognized on November 13th at the meeting here. So if you're around, please come. We want to recognize for them for the generosity in making that possible through that gift.
Great.
So thank you very much.
On the technology, one person suggested something that I thought was interesting, to have a place where people could bring, alarm clocks and kind of appliances that tend to be a challenge to set up. I thought that was worth looking into.
Yeah. That could be a makerspace kind of day. Yeah.
Thanks.
Bring your.
Councilman Walsh?
Well, nobody uses VCRs anymore, do they?
All our old videos. I just dated myself. So I guess my question would be the transportation, because the statistics on the transportation. So are we to assume that everybody is still just driving everywhere themselves? They're not using the. I mean,
well, we have
not using the public transportation at all.
No, public transportation that's so interesting, and we've done a training with a TIP here in Ridgewood. No, a lot of people are still driving, but many are restricting their driving. So I'll drive during the day.
Okay.
I will avoid all highways. I'll avoid busy parking lots, and I will, do my errands early in the morning. And if it's raining, I'm home. So it is that population that we think we could open up the doors when there's transportation available for an option to use that when I can no longer use it. So some of the programs that we've been doing with those special rides have really been about introducing them to the bus. It's not so bad. Billy is fabulous. The bus is comfortable. And we can get you there, and you didn't have to park or drive or, Billy helps you get your groceries in the door. So, yeah.
So, but I guess it doesn't really delve into the ones that use it, why they're not using it more.
Public transportation?
I mean? Or the senior bus. So is it scheduling? Is it that they can't understand the schedule? Is it that they don't feel like the schedule fits the places they want to go? So I don't know if we've ever done a survey of the people that actually ride our senior bus, because we do have a nice, shiny new senior bus, but is it that we're not going to the places that they want to go to, and that we get more people if they went?
We're thinking we need to get some of those people together and do some focus groups, because we didn't want the survey to be too cumbersome. And I'd love to ask 10 more questions, just as you said.
Because
so we definitely plan
if you
that.
look at these statistics, even for a suburban area, so you figure urban areas, almost everybody uses some sort of public transportation, and suburban, it's usually a little bit less, but we've fallen off the. It's really strange, these statistics. So I'd be curious if you could maybe. Figure that.
I think we do need, and that, as I said, that is a challenge for us to try to really figure out why that's not used. And yet we hear about the need. I hear about the need all the time. Now, some of it is that it's restrictive. You can only use it from 10 to 2. Well, my doctor's appointment's at 2 or 3 in the afternoon because that's when the doctor, so I can't use that form of transportation. So I think we do need to do that and point to point. And we heard, remember last year we had heard a request to use go up to Ramsey to the interstate.
Yeah.
And, we just didn't have the ridership that we thought we would. So now we're trying the Wyckoff shopping center. Yeah. As well as around Ridgewood and to doctor's office.
And Janet, Fricky and Beth Spinato and Billy have worked really hard to get the word out and work with us to try different things.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a great partnership.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. That's all I had. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, so good. We're going to work on that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Sure, thank you. So I'm actually so confused by your survey, believe it or not, and I very rarely say I'm confused, but I'm confused.
Oh, okay.
So I have a couple questions because I have a very different format that we received in our packets. It's unlike, very different than the presentation you just did. So I had kind of completed a deep dive into your analysis that we had received, and then you showed us this, and they're almost very, very different to me. And I'm very interested in this topic, and we want to make certain that we serve our older population appropriately and meet the needs as the population does age. One of the things, for instance, and just as an example, in your presentation you just did, you said 70% of your respondents were very familiar with age-friendly Ridgewood.
Mm-hmm.
Yet on the document that I received, and I'm actually wondering if it's the wrong document, you have over 50% that have very little knowledge or no knowledge at all of age-friendly Ridgewood. And that's a big discrepancy.
I don't have that.
Which one? On this?
Yeah.
This one.
That's what we had.
We have this.
Right.
No,
right.
I have.
Oh.
See what you have, Bernadette? Oh, you know what? Right. No, so.
On the one with the questions like in linear or in the?
Yeah, so we received this document.
Right.
Right.
And then the linear, those lines. Yeah. So on your slideshow, you said that 70% have familiarity with age-friendly Ridgewood, yet on the document that I have, it says more than 50% either had very little or zero familiarity.
So
with.
which question is that?
So key findings on the first page. 73% familiar with age-friendly Ridgewood to some extent.
Yeah, so you know what, I'm actually one of the council members who went totally paperless, so I'm looking at a different, so
okay.
it's a little bit different for me.
Right.
So it looks like it's,
I have the
well,
physical
actually, it's on
ones here.
question number, let's just see. Okay.
Yeah, it's all of the ones put together.
Okay, one, right. All right, so there it is, question number 1. Right. Right, so here it says very little or not at all familiar with age-friendly Ridgewood, and that's more than 50%, and you just said 70% were very familiar with age-friendly.
No, not at all is the only
So
one.
in this document, the
Not at all is the only one
one?
that's not counted on the 73%.
I'm sorry?
Not at all is the only one that's not counted on the 73%.
Oh, so you remove the not at all from that calculation?
Yeah, it's
Well,
just
this
the
is
same
what-
as here.
Oh, okay, all right, so that changes the
It's
number.
because they're saying familiar to some extent. This is what Montclair made for us. We didn't say, that's why we're making.
All right, so but if somebody
everything-
says they're not familiar at all, then, and you remove those, then it bumps
was
up the number that's familiar.
27%
Right,
did
okay,
not.
so, all right, so I get what they did, but I mean, it's kind of, that's why you can appreciate why I might be confused, because I see people are not at all familiar, and it's kind of an odd discrepancy.
We kind of laughed at ourselves because we were trying so hard to get more respondents. We went to the farmer's market and handed out, our postcards. So in a way, we shot ourselves in the foot because I think we gave it to a lot of people who didn't hear of us. But we're happy about that because now they know about us. But of course, they said they didn't know us before.
So you can appreciate why I see the number
Yes.
Very, very
You can
different
look at it
and
both ways.
skewed, so it's kind of in my
Well,
mind. I'm thinking-
27%
I actually thought I had the
didn't-
wrong document. I thought I had maybe your original survey, and I was looking at different things
But
here.
27% did not, but then when you look at our survey, 73% did have
But
knowledge
also, I
of
think
us.
what Montclair
But-
did, what the research firm
Right.
did was, in their parens, they have all the they go down to very little.
Mhm.
You know,
Right.
they are being honest of which categories they summed up. You know.
Okay. So then then it brings me to the next question. So my mother, just so everybody knows, she's out there, we'll say good evening to my mother. She's 83. She lives right here in Ridgewood. Longtime resident. She was not communicated with to take this survey, and so I wanted to ask the methodology and the outreach and where you found it, because when you rightly said, Beth, that more than 25% of the Ridgewood population, close to 7,000 residents, are 55 and over. So when we look at the number of 384 surveyed, and actually 282 actually responded to the questions, that's a very small percentage of that population. So I'm interested in knowing, because as Councilwoman Walsh is rightly pointing out, she's surprised at the results of the transportation response. And so I'm interested in understanding that methodology and the outreach.
So yeah, maybe I went through those slides too fast. You know, we had postcards in Village Hall. Heather put it in the e-notice. We had a letter to the editor in the Ridgewood News. We went to Hilt, all the adult group meetings that we could.
Postcards at Daily Treat. We did placemats at Daily Treat. We did Farmers Market. We gave out bags and postcards. And
postcards at the library.
Library, right. Hard copies of the survey as well as Survey Monkey. Now, it's in June and July.
Right.
So we know that that's always an interesting month. We also had information at the Graydon breakfast.
Okay, and then I just had one other question on here. So in your survey, there were no questions relative to, and it's a really important one, like the senior tax freeze, which is so critical to folks that want to stay in Ridgewood, especially with tax impacts. And we know we have the library here. They want to do, bond for their renovation. You all know that on Board of Education, you have that big referendum barreling toward us. So the senior tax freeze is a really crucial piece to the ability to stay in Ridgewood with property taxes. I guess you didn't ask any questions about the more granular programs that are available to help seniors stay age in place?
And not in our questionnaire. I did last year a talk on property tax relief and went through all of the property tax relief programs at the library. They allowed me to do that. Every year we do information on the homestead benefit and the senior freeze or the property tax reimbursement. And in fact, I often get phone calls on it because we also have been pushing that out through the senior center in Midland Park, which also serves Ridgewood. In addition, at our housing meeting, I have developed informational flyers on both those property tax relief programs, and I've asked and given Heather a number of other towns how they have been publicizing the property tax relief programs through brochures or whatever. So we have quite a bit of information on property tax relief, whether it's the veterans benefit or whether you're entitled to the municipal $250 off, depending upon your income, property tax freeze, and homestead benefit. The homestead benefit, as you know, that application just came out, and I've been helping a number of people with those telephone calls to get that done.
Good.
So it is on our radar screen. We also have information on it on our website.
Right. It's just like seems like an important piece in
it
the
is
survey
very important
that we would ask those questions. Are you familiar with, like just a checklist? Are you familiar with this program, this program, this program? Because that is significant in aging in place. I think I'm just going to do a little more deep diving and probably reach out and ask a couple
Great.
more
We'd love
questions.
that.
So,
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for your presentation and all the work you've been doing. It's been about, I guess, 4 years that you've been kind of immersed in this subject. So I have, I guess, just one question. It kind of goes beyond the survey. So in all of that time, what is probably your top concern that you've heard about from older residents?
It's the housing. That's the one we can't, certainly fix ourselves, but
Yeah.
that's what people are thinking about.
It's housing options. It's the ability to downsize into something and be able to stay in Ridgewood. Not necessarily low income, market rate, and but accessible, one floor. Housing, don't you think that's the number one? Second is transportation. So interesting to me. Again, that's why you do a survey, though, and you try to figure out what it is. Affordability would be the next, and I think that's a New Jersey problem as well as a Ridgewood problem.
And is there any kind of suggestions that you've either heard or have come out of, several years of work about, what could we do, to increase housing options or transportation or anything like that?
I mean, yeah.
What we hear are availability of a townhouse or a condo, something where if I sold my house, I could reinvest in something rather than rental units. However, we've also heard that some will be happy to have the rental opportunities that will have. So it's hard to know exactly but I think what we're clear on is they want a variety of options, and we don't really have that variety in Ridgewood. Yeah, and people do seem to want to stay here, which is a wonderful town.
I agree.
So,
thank you.
Wanted to add, I think one of the things that kind of stuck out the most was was participation, the use of technology. I think that's wonderful because, I've met with some other residents, older adults, who said, look, I'm having a tough time dealing with those electronic stuff. When are you guys going to start printing out like a mailer that, to send out? So it was in contrast to that. But the biggest surprise was this. I mean, the amount of options, right? And obviously the transportation thing has been an issue, right? It keeps coming up as a concern. I'm happy that there's so many options here, so many choices. And maybe if it's not so much an issue of people not knowing that these resources are available to them, but it's also, I think, in a way, the same way that we kind of partner up, working with the community center, working with the library, having the village with the e-notices, H-Venue Ridgewood, maybe also finding a way to kind of create the programming to get people out and wanting to do more things, not just going to the supermarket or doctor's appointment or sort of give them more of the reasons to to need the transportation and make it work. So I think maybe there's some of the things that we can do to work on that.
If I could,
yeah.
I think you're so right, because when you decide to not drive any longer, you're cutting off a lot of your social, and so with transportation, the ideal would be to normalize your life. So we asked Janet Fricky, and you can. So if I wanted to go meet my friend for lunch in Ridgewood, but I can't drive, and I'm not so great at parallel parking anymore, or that the kiosk is a little bit more because I never can remember my, license plate number, whatever that issue is that sort of keeps me from doing that. And Janet said, of course, when the bus runs, if somebody wants to come in and meet a friend for lunch, yes. So I think that kind of normalization, we need to make sure that people understand that there's a flexibility in being able to use in the services. So, yeah, these are our challenges. Yeah.
And then, the other thing I was shocked about as well was the low amount of participation in the survey. I mean, we kind of have a reputation for some of this stuff. I know we've been talking now to the folks from the Census Bureau, and they feel that we had a 30% under participation in the last census. I know that we're working very hard. We created the Complete Count Committee involving the library, the village, the YMCA, League of Women Voters. I think there's in the Board of Ed, and I think there's a lot of stuff that we can be doing to kind of get. So it'd be great to see what are some of the ways, especially if our older adults are using technology. What is it that we can do to kind of get in front of them a little bit more to get their participation rate up? And because there are a lot of things that have come up. They come up when you talk to people. They come up in a lot of the trends that you see in terms of, what are the best practices for downtowns and how we plan around making them more, pedestrian safe, friendly, and so on. And even some of the feedback that came up during the master plan visioning workshops. I mean, a lot of this stuff is really, very important. I think it was, trees and age friendliness. Trees are age friendly.
I saw that.
So, I guess it's for all of us to get together and kind of figure out what can we do to drive these types of dialogues and get people more engaged to do that.
Well, we certainly are so pleased to work with you, and New Jersey Future, I think, might lend us some insight too. So, yeah, we're here.
Can you send the link, if there is a link to the umbrella, is that what you call that?
Yes.
Can you send that link? Because I think I'd like to take a look at that, and then maybe that's something we can add to our website. Do you mind?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So,
they'll be at that meeting. I can get a brochure for you and all that information, but it is...
I'll send you their website, too.
And, yeah.
And then, because we could always add that, I guess, like to e-notice or something, to say visit, and if that's a way for folks to kind of get that
I'd say there
helping hand,
are
if
a
you
couple
will.
of different ones. So if there are
Whatever you
umbrella,
have.
chore service, safely at home. So there are a
We're
few...
thinking of creating a brochure similar to that, transportation, with all those kind of...
Yeah.
Assuming, I guess, that everybody's vetted, that...
Right.
Yeah, because,
Right,
what
That's the challenge.
I had given this to Heather, and there's even a new document out. But this is a good document. So the county is printing that, and they printed 5,000, and they're down to the last one. They've just reprinted now. So yeah.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Thanks again.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Our next presentation is the library renovation update. So I'll invite those people up at this time.
Just please make sure those microphones are on there. Yeah. Thank you. They are? They're on? Oh. You see a green light at the bottom of the button stem?
Hello. There we go. Hello.
We know you're age-friendly,
Okay.
too, right?
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for making the time for us tonight. If I could just take 1 second before we move on from senior services to the library. We have a tech program specifically for senior citizens on Tuesdays from 10 to 11 so that they can take the senior bus. And they can bring alarm clocks. They can bring any kind of device that they're having trouble with, and we have staff there to try to help them. And I know they can bring digital alarm clocks because I did. So, so feel
Nice
free
plug,
to.
Nancy, that was a nice segue. Good.
Yeah. Thank you. I'd like to say that most of tonight's presentation is going to be done by the volunteers that are putting their heart and soul into making the library the best it can be for our community. So I would just like to introduce our team tonight. We have our library board president, Gail Campbell, who you know. We have her Rebecca Rubenstein, who's on the Friends of the Library as well as the Capital Campaign Committee. Rocco Orlando, who is on the library board and fortunately for us also an architect. And Renu Vitale, who is on the foundation board and also on the Capital Campaign Committee. And I'd like to thank all the trustees and friends and foundation members that also are here tonight. And with that, Rebecca, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'd like to start by saying that Ridgewood residents have significantly increased the use of the library with greater demand for programs and services, technology, and workspace. The current infrastructure does not support the existing and potential future community needs. So to this end, the library has thoughtfully identified key areas of need to create a concept renovation plan, which was previously presented to you a year ago. The total investment required is approximately $7.7 million. The library now has a viable opportunity to receive a once-in-a-generation matching state grant and is therefore asking Village Council for $2 million to complement a private fundraise of $2 million, which will enable an application for a $3.7 million match from the state. In the next few minutes, we will do a quick refresher of the case to renovate, and then we'll spend the rest of the time addressing community concerns, including timing and next steps. Why renovate? The demand for programs, services, technology, and workspace has outpaced the anticipated demand of the 1998 renovation, and the current infrastructure does not support current needs. Strikingly, you'll notice that since 1998, the demand for physical books and media has grown only 13%, paling in comparison to the 250 to 300% growth in program attendance and reference usage, both which require additional technology and configurable physical space. The growth in demand reflects the needs of all demographics of Ridgewood, from seniors to children, from job seekers to ESL students, even to a person just wanting to learn how to use their new smartphone. Key areas of need. Here is where the data comes alive. In 1998, you would have seen patrons looking at stacks of books. Now you see teens crammed into the stacks and overcrowding due to demands for the library services. You see standing room only at events in the auditorium. And the library regularly has to say no for requests of meeting rooms of all sizes. But because the majority of our needs require us to only reconfigure the current space, the library will not have to reduce the size of their current physical book collection. So I'm going to hand this over to Gail, who's going to walk you through the finances as well as address key community needs.
I don't think that's on. Could you make sure the green light's on?
Oh, sorry. As I said, I'm Gail Campbell, President of the Board of Trustees, and I'm going to address the financial impact of the project. So as Rebecca said earlier, we are asking the Village Council for $2 million, no more and no less. How does this impact the overall plan? Well, the Capital Campaign Committee is committed to raising $2 million, and to date we have raised $1,850,000, thanks in large part to the generous challenge grant made by the Bolger Foundation and by the generosity of our Ridgewood residents. Together, the $4 million will allow us to apply for a $3.7 million grant offered by the New Jersey Library Construction Bond Act. In total, if we receive the grants, we will have $7.7 million that will enable us to finance our project. So as mentioned before, the impact on the average Ridgewood household would be $16.58 a year for 20 years. We are committed to continue to fundraise, and we are committed to modifying our plans based on the money available to fund the project. Next, I want to address some of the concerns that have been raised about the project. First, there have been questions about what happens if we don't receive the full amount of the grant or if we receive no grant. In that case, we will not ask the Village Council for more than $2 million. Next, we have Rocco, our resident architect, come up with an alternative plan based on our goals for the project. He will discuss that alternative plan in a few minutes. So even if we only have $4 million, we strongly believe that this is the time to renovate because the library needs to modernize to address current needs. The concept plan. As you're probably aware, the staircase has been a lightning rod. The staircase was put in to address strategic goals, but it will be addressed in the design development stage once we know our budget. The design development stage will include the community's input. So to be clear, we are open up to revising our concept plan, the plan that you've seen. The capital campaign, as we said before, the capital campaign will continue to fundraise and has already raised over $1.8 million. Another concern is parking. Parking is really a separate issue. Parking is a current problem at the library during some of the time, not all the time, but some of the time parking is a problem. But the renovation will have only a minimal impact, if any, on parking. In addition, trends in biking, walking, and ride sharing may also relieve some of the problems with parking. Lastly, questions have been raised about library services during construction. We expect that to keep parts of the library open during our construction. Some services or programs may be provided in nearby locations, and of course residents have access to Buckles and digital services. Now I'm going to turn this over to Rocco, who will discuss the alternative plan.
Thank you, Board. Appreciate us meeting with us tonight. I just have to say the Board of Trustees have been pleased to be part of it, and you have a lot of individuals who are putting a lot of time and effort to really improve our town, which is great. I am an architect. Just to give you a background, I am a licensed architect in New Jersey, been for 25 years. I also am in commercial construction for the last 30 years. So I'm happy to be able to help out and look at the independent estimates that we received, construction estimates that were very close, one in 2016, one in 2018, compare them and look at the plan that we have, which is a conceptual plan. Budgets were based on that. And as Gail mentioned, that we are open to modifying the plan as needed, and we're open to all the suggestions that we've received so far. So I'm just going to walk you through the conceptual plan as it's on our website and what an alternate plan would, with the reduced funds, what would change slightly. So the new teen room is something that is very important, something that we need to expand and is very important in the overall design. So that's going to remain as our key element to keep intact. Small meeting rooms and study rooms, we have that on the mezzanine area that we're looking to expand. With the reduced budget, we're not going to be able to expand, so we're going to have to modify and look at that area a little bit closely. Improve natural light and flow. The design calls for a very nice center staircase. The feature handles many different factors, or it helps improve the library and hall. It not only brings in light and opens up the space, it also has a connection point between the lower level, which was once the basement, to the upper level. A lot of people come in off the parking lot side, so it's adjoining between the two floors. It's a gathering space, and a lot of the functions work off of that central stair. It's a key element in the design. But with the reduced budget, we're looking to take the existing staircase that's there, do some modifications to open it up, to still get that connection between the floors. Not as dramatic, but that's what we're going to be looked to task to do. New furnishings. So the plan calls for all new furnishings. Specifically, I'm speaking of furniture and bookcases. It's expensive. This is proposed in a new conceptual plan. We'd have to cut back significantly if we didn't receive all the funds. Like the library is over close to 20 years, I think, the last time it was renovated. So you can understand how weathered and used the furniture is, and it's in very need of a replacement, but we're not going to be able to fund all of that if we don't get the overall budget that we're looking for. Modify and relocate restrooms in the new plan. It was looking for taking existing bathrooms, moving them to a different location, keeping the main bathrooms off the main hallway when you come into the library intact, doing some renovations to them, but there was single bathrooms throughout the floor plan that we were removing, relocating so we can open up the flow to the library to utilize the space much better. That will be unable to be done with the funding, so we have to work around that, which is Again, not the overall concept plans, but we have to reduce somewhere, and that's what we're going to have to do in that area. Modify and expand the mezzanine, I mentioned before. We're looking to expand the mezzanine on the upper level. That's something that we're going to have to eliminate and reconfigure the space as is. Last is the expansion and changing of the existing auditorium. We're looking to expand that and reconfigure. That's something that we're unable to do if the budget is reduced. It just won't be able to happen.
Okay, thank you, Rocco. So timing is important to us right now. So our best information is that the applications to apply for the state grant will be available around November 1st. Once the applications are available, we have 90 days to submit an application. When we submit the application, we must state that we have or will have matching funds. So that gives us until about January 1st to raise $2 million and for the Village Council to appropriate an additional $2 million so that we may apply for the $3.7 million state grant. After that, we anticipate that the grants will be awarded by August 1st, and then after that we will move into design development, and after that bid specifications will be prepared, issued, and awarded, and if everything goes right, we would break ground in early 2001. Oh, 21, I'm sorry. Next steps. As you can see, our next steps are to work with the village's grant writer to prepare our application, continue to fundraise, secure $2 million from the Village Council, apply for the grant, and then revise our project based on available funds. Thank you all for listening. Are there any questions? You're welcome.
We'll start with Councilman Boyd.
Thank you, Mayor. So there was a comment that was made earlier by one of the residents in public comment, and the statement was it's all about the books. And my concern is that it just seems to me that our residents might be ill-informed as to why it needs to happen, why it needs to change the inside of it. And you guys might want to think about making sure people understand what the reasons are, why you want to modify this. I'm still, my guess is I'm uncomfortable. I don't think that residents really understand why you're doing it. That's my point. And just one data point that said it's all about the books, and it really isn't about the books. So you might want to think a little bit about that, okay, as you're starting to let people know about the reasons why you're doing this, okay, because it's not about the books. Couple of questions on when do you need an answer from the council on the $2 million?
So as I said, when we apply for the grant, we have to say that the funds will be or are available. So when I sign that application, and I think the earliest it'll be available will be that'll be due is January 30th.
Right.
That's the earliest that the application will be due.
Yeah.
Right. So I have to be confident when I sign that application that either we have or will have those funds available. So we have to work within that time frame.
Yeah. And so there's a process we have to undergo too to go ahead and do that. So you might want to just kind of work back from when do we need to vote on that. I mean, it's got to be. I guess the bond has to be introduced, public hearing.
Has to be voted.
Yeah,
right.
And that has to be voted. So you might want to think about the timing on that, and it sounds like it's got to be pretty soon. We got to put that on the.
Right. We were discussing that last night at our meeting, and Councilwoman Walsh was helping us with those meeting dates.
Yeah, the dates. Okay, good.
But
perfect.
Thank you.
I'm just really impressed, I got to tell you, with the amount of money that's been raised, private funding.
Yes, we're very happy too about that.
Yeah. How much more do you think you're going to get?
That's a difficult question. I don't want to answer that question. I don't know.
Well, we have a lot of very generous residents.
We are certainly going to continue to fundraise. We've only just started, so I'm confident that we can raise more money.
Just from a pure reasonableness standpoint, for us to give you $2 million, and we're getting 5.7 on top of that. that makes just infinite sense that we would want to do something like that. I mean, even if it was you only got $2 million from private funding, and if we gave $2 million, again, it makes infinite sense because we're only paying for half to a third of it, so it just makes perfect sense to me. Just from a perspective of why I moved here, there were 3 reasons why I moved here. I moved here because of the schools, I moved here because of the downtown, and I moved here because of the library. Okay, and the library is it's a crown jewel in the town, and it is probably the best library in Bergen County. And we have to. I think you guys, as you've rightly figured out, is you've got to keep it up to date with the times. It really is a community center. And again, there was a comment made that you're not increasing the space, but that's really not the issue. The issue is that you need to reconform the space to make sure you got to meet the function. And the function right now is as a community center. So it needs to look like that inside, and not like a library, a traditional library. So it makes perfect sense to me. Even if you weren't going to expand it, if you were going to reconfigure the space, it makes perfect sense that you would want to do that. So I got to tell you, I'm fully supportive of what you're doing, and anything that I can do to help, please let me know. So
thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Yep.
Can I just address one of your questions? You actually suggested about the marketing that there has been insufficient, and that is a fair point. And one of the great things that you've seen, hopefully recently, is there has been more information in the newspapers about recent events and the fundraising, and we are aware of this, and you should be seeing a lot more presence in terms of our communication, so the residents understand that we are trying to bring better value to them.
Thanks.
Thank you. Councilman Walsh.
Thank you, and thank you guys for the presentation. I have been sitting with you and working with you over these months. I'm truly appreciative of all the work that the residents and volunteers have been putting into this project. When I first moved to Ridgewood, I was able to use and appreciate the last renovation. So when Nancy talks about it being generational, I had just had my first child, and now he's 22 years old and an adult, and my other kids have kind of moved through the library system, as it were. So, and as we just had Sheila and Beth here, so the library is a resource for people who go in just to have some quiet time, to find a book, who want to bring their kids there, to introduce them to reading. I myself read about 2 books a week. So, those are lifelong skills that we want people to have and children to have. I'm floored that you were able to raise $850,000. Appreciate the library, and any donate money. We give what we can. So if somebody can give 100, they